Hi, this is Chris Harris, and you are watching the Letterman Podcast.
La, la, la. Welcome once again to the Letterman Podcast. My name is Mike Chisholm. All right, so the entire episode is not about what if David Letterman hosted The Tonight Show. Okay, that's the thumbnail we used, and it's based on the show was, I knew between Christmas and New Year's there was going to be a show that was going to be a community show. It happened organically. Darin Cox and Rob Kates, who by the way have never been on a show together. Darin Cox, episode 1 guest here at the Letterman Podcast, co-host of the Irritable Dad Syndrome podcast, works for Antenna TV, has for a long time, loves this stuff, as much as any of us do. Love Darin very, very much. And Rob Kates, who runs, is the administrator of a bunch of different Facebook groups, including the David Letterman fans Facebook group, also member of our community, the Letterman Podcast community. They've never been on a show together, and I thought it was really interesting. There was a post in Rob's site about a week ago, and somebody posted the picture that we used as the thumbnail here. It was kind of a what if David Letterman hosted The Tonight Show back in the day. What if he would have gotten the show? And people were throwing on different ideas and whatnot out there. And it's funny. I thought about it. I interacted a little bit with it, and so did a few others. But then David Letterman helped induct the Grateful Dead at the Kennedy Center Awards in the past couple of weeks here. And the first joke that he made, we were kind of let it pass. And actually Darin even made a comment about this. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, people talking about the idea of Dave hosting The Tonight Show. It's so many years later. When are we going to stop about, talking about Dave not getting The Tonight Show? But one of the first things that he said at the Kennedy Center Honors was talking about how he dreamt about hosting The Tonight Show. Dave's still making punchlines about it. And so we started communicating about it, saying, oh, let's do an episode. And so that's not all we talk about. We do talk about this a little bit. We talk about the Samsung Letterman channel on the Letterman Samsung Fast channel, and a few other things. And it's just, three friends catching up, talking about all things late night Letterman, all of that kind of stuff between Christmas and New Year's, kind of reflecting a little bit. And you get to be a fly on the wall. Not a fly on the wall the way Dana Carvey and David Spade do it, clearly, but we're excited that you're here. Please enjoy the last episode of the Letterman Podcast in 2024. Hey boys, top of the season to you. It's great to see both of you.
Yeah, you too, definitely.
It's good to see you guys.
And me and Darin are representing. Rob's a little bit off. Check it out right there. Oh, there's that one. You got the hoodie. See, Darin, you put on Facebook that you got the beanie. You got the Letterman beanie.
I did, and I cannot recommend it enough. It is snug. It's because I don't think I have a fat head, but it's snug. It's very well made. It's not. They didn't just grab some beanie at JCPenney's and slap a logo on it. I'm not getting paid to endorse their product, but it is it's a comfortable damn beanie, and I love it. I got the hoodie, and then between my mom and my wife, I got the hoodie, a t-shirt like the one you're wearing.
Yeah, you got this guy right here. There it is.
Yes, I got that. Yeah, the hoodie's stupid comfortable and soft.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, on the Worldwide Pants site, you can get Barbara Gaines show apparel, and they even have late night apparel. But I wanted to mention, I'm sure you guys noticed this, the late night shirts, it just says late night. It does not say with David Letterman. So I don't know if that's a copyright issue or what.
Let me show you something that I have. And,
okay.
And I've never mentioned this before on this podcast, but I have.
You're holding out on us. You're holding out on us.
I wish I could still fit in it, but I have had that probably since I was 15 or 16, so a long time.
Did you get that at the NBC store, like back in the day when you went and saw the show?
I was in Houston, and it was on sale at a mall, and I think it was an NBC store or something like that, but I bought it when I was in Houston, Texas, forever ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So I wish I could fit in it, but alas, Daddy's got.
I don't have one of those shirts, but I do have the hat, the late night with David Letterman hat, and this was bought for me when I was in college. So we're looking at probably 1988, 1989. My college roommate from Michigan State University, go Spartans. He picked this up for me in New York when he saw a taping of Dave at Rockefeller Center.
So that's from the actual original show from the,
Oh, yeah.
the scene of the
Oh,
crime.
yeah.
I don't have any of that stuff. The only
Hang on one second.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We're talking about hats. So
Yeah.
I've got my blue Late Show hat. This is my OG Late Show David Letterman hat that I have wore until, honest to God, it has turned gray. I mean, I have just beaten this down. This is sweat stained, and it's been in pools and oceans, and I don't know how many different states this son of a bitch has been to. But I wore this thing just out, and then Libby felt bad, and she bought me this new one because I kept wearing this everywhere. She's like, "We've got to get you a new hat." So
no. Libby did not feel bad. Libby felt embarrassed. That's what was going on there. You say potato, right?
Actually, I was like, I felt bad that I got mine sweat stained, so I did. I got a new one. This one never gets. This one I basically wear around the house.
Yeah.
I still wear this to the pool, to the beach.
Was that navy at one time?
These used to look exactly alike.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. I figured it was just like a khaki hat, but it's not.
No, Kathy.
Is it? What's the quote on the back of that one?
It says Worldwide Pants Incorporated.
Just Worldwide Pants Incorporated. Yeah.
Yep.
The back of these guys here, and you won't be able to hear me when I come around, but it's got the genius quote.
Right.
Cool.
Is that on the hoodie as well?
You tell me.
No, nothing on the hoodie.
Let's say I didn't think so.
Nothing on the hoodie. No.
But yeah.
Man, you guys have got me down. When it comes to late night stuff, I think the only late night stuff I have is I've got one of the softball t-shirts that Steve O'Donnell gave me. So it says Late Night Athletics on it. They used to wear that playing softball. He gave me that.
Right.
And then I've got, okay. I've got Ed Hall's original Late Night with David Letterman jacket. I've got that. So that's but
that's all you've got. I mean, all I have is Ed Hall's jacket and something
like
O'Donnell gave me.
Yeah, and you've got what, like 10 Letterman jackets, something like that?
No, I have 8.
8.
Okay.
No, Rob, don't be
coming
stupid.
up on 10.
Don't be stupid. It's not 10, it's 8.
Oh yeah.
He's not double digits. He's not a freak.
I didn't mean to do it like that. I just meant I don't have the t-shirt is all I'm saying. I just don't have the original Late Night with David Letterman t-shirt. How was your Christmas, guys? Other than getting and okay, yes, Barbara Gaines. Like, we'll do a commercial here for the Worldwide Pants store. They made fun of it a little bit. They actually shot a video talking about it. Dave was poking fun, saying the merchandise isn't going at all, which makes me think that it probably is selling.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm grateful that I'm sure grateful that they pulled the trigger on it, but and it's different stuff than what Rupert has. I like that too. I probably will get a Late Show. I really like how concise the Late Show t-shirt is on there, and I'll probably get a Barbara Gaines one as well. And I should send her an email and ask her, but I mean, the fact that Dave comes on and they are literally building the idea of the Barbara Gaines show is hilarious to me.
Yes.
I love it so much that they're going all in with the Barbara Gaines show.
Oh, it's great. I swear I love when Barbara's not there.
Yeah.
And he's filling in. And then when she comes back, he says, "I'm sorry that you were sick." And she's like, "Oh, I wasn't sick. It's like, I just wasn't here."
It's so
You could
great.
say she was on assignment.
That was one of those days where I could give a crap.
I wish
Barbara's awesome on that thing.
I really wish that Don Giller was in a position that he could do. And I mean, I don't even know how long it would be. Like, I mean, my gosh, the Tony Mendez compilation was, I mean, I don't know if that would be longer or not, but I mean, imagine if they did a Barbara Gaines compilation. Like, all the times, like, I just love the evolution, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From back when she was, behind the set screaming, screaming back and forth with Dave, all the way up to the idea that she's executive producing, she's behind the podium, and now she's actually in front of the camera.
Well, she was the woman who challenged that expert typewriter.
Typist?
Okay.
Typist. Thank you.
I feel like
Typist
it's
writer. Yes. That was Barbara. That was awesome.
Well, and she's been with Dave since the morning show, I think.
Morning show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
impressive.
she and Biff.
Yeah.
There's
Jerry Mulligan, I believe. Jerry Mulligan was there, I believe. Jerry Mulligan was writing jokes for Dave when he was doing his Tonight Show spots.
Okay.
oh, that's
So,
right.
so I think he even proceeded, but
Mhm.
he didn't go right to the end. Of course, I mean he did go right to the end because they kept bringing him back and they kept doing stuff with him. But he
Oh yeah, he
officially
would
did
come out with Chris
retire.
Elliott.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah. But I mean, he went right to the. I was gonna say that went right to the end of Late Show, but he
Hmm.
retired from Late Show. Barbara didn't. Barbara, I think she is probably the one that made the longest. Um, yeah, it's
Yeah,
quite
it's worth looking
remarkable.
into, but I think you're right.
It's quite remarkable. And then when you include after Late Show, I mean, Dave's doing stuff with Barbara still. It's so
Yeah.
great to see. And yeah, it's so much fun for those. Obviously, if you're listening or watching this show, you watch the Letterman YouTube channel. But if there's anybody there who doesn't know what we're talking about, please go and watch the Letterman YouTube channel. It is fantastic. And
Hmm.
there's Barbara Kane's show merchandise on this thing. So it's good. Rob, how was your Christmas?
It was good. It was just
Yeah.
fine. Yeah. Yeah. It was pretty cool. I discovered some of my in-laws are really into TV stuff like I am. So we talked quite a bit about Johnny and Dave and Conan and Saturday Night Live and all that stuff. So we had some good TV conversations, which is always nice.
Oh, that's going to be fun. I was thinking about you because there's an article that both you and I love, and the writer of that article, I'm recording with him on Monday. His name's Andrew Buss. He wrote the Vanity Fair oral history piece on Conan. He's coming on the show, and I know that was one that you liked a lot. And by the way, let's start the show here. And I mean, not that anybody it's of note, but we're talking about Conan here. Just send our love out to Conan O'Brien
Yeah.
right now. And man, what a thing he'd had to go through. 1-2 punch that he had to go through a few weeks ago, losing his parents. So we just want to
As
send
I
love
say,
out to
I
him.
haven't experienced that firsthand, but I've got a really good friend whose mother died, and then the day after her mother's funeral, her father passed away, and we're like, "Oh my God!" I mean, it was horrible. It was really, really horrible. And I know Weird Al's parents; they both died at the same time.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, Carrie Fisher's mom died the day after she did, the day after.
Yes.
So I mean, it's rare that this type of thing happens, but I can't imagine what Conan, is going through, losing them both so close together.
Yeah, both
Yeah.
of them
I
in the
love
same
them.
week. Both of them were in their 90s. I mean, his
Yeah.
dad was a doctor, his mom was a lawyer. Obviously, they put a huge emphasis on education and learning in their
Hmm.
family, and hence Conan ends up going to Harvard. So
Yeah.
it's just really heartbreaking to hear about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he talked about them a lot. Like, I mean, on the show, but on his podcast, certainly he talked about his parents a lot, and the whole family situation. That I love when Conan talks about his situation growing up, and of course he inflates everything and whatnot. It just
Hmm.
it's such a and I just wonder if it'll be different. Um, have you guys watched the show? Somebody Feed Phil. Phil
Oh
Rosenthal. Have
yeah.
either you watched that?
Yeah,
You watched that?
Yeah.
I've seen clips. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I hope I'm not spoiling anything. It's 7 seasons or whatever. But at the beginning of the show, he would go. Phil Rosenthal would go to an exotic location, eat a bunch of food, and at the end of the episode, he would talk to his parents over Skype, and that was part of the show. His brother's a producer on the show, and they had a lot of fun with that. And then throughout the course of the run, both of his parents passed away, and it's just interesting hearing and seeing Phil's perspective, before and after, and how that goes. And I mean, I feel like Conan is going to have a similar sort of response where there will be tributes and things like that every now and then towards his parents. So we just want to send love out to Conan
Yeah.
man, what a blow that is. And over the holidays as well. It's just it's a hard thing to hear. So
Yeah,
so
and he
much
was
love
not
to
on the
Conan
big
O'Brien.
show this past Monday. I mean, Conan usually puts out a Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend on Mondays, and he was not on there. So Sona and Matt they kind of did they did the show on their own, but and they referenced the fact that both of Conan's parents had passed away.
Yeah.
It was a clip show, right? They did a clip show. Yeah. We'll pivot a little bit. This is something that I wish Letterman would have done. I actually, John Moran, who was on our show, I don't know, I want to say a couple of months ago, he sent me a piece of footage, and it's a piece of footage of him, but it's during rehearsal. And Conan used to do this on his TBS show, and it was my favorite show that Conan would do was, I loved Conan without, when Conan would not, it wasn't called Conan Without Borders back then. I don't think it was, whatever the travel. Oh, maybe it was it Conan Without Borders on the TBS show when he would go different places?
I think so.
I think
Just say
that's what it was.
Conan. I don't remember.
Okay. So he would travel around. You actually never watched Conan, Darin?
Oh no, I've watched tons of Conan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he would go touring around, but that was one of the different types of show he would do on the TBS show. But the other one was when they would put a compilation together of rehearsal footage stuff. It was just stuff left on the cut, but it was just really, really funny stuff that happened during rehearsal. And John Moran sent me a video not too long ago, and I'll see if I can throw it on here somehow. He sent it to me on Facebook, and I don't know how I could rip it off there, but I'll give you the Cole's notes of it. It's it was the idea was John Moran, they would put him on bits sometimes. So they had him sitting with the band. And so Matt Roberts is behind Letterman's desk. They're doing the rehearsal, and Matt's going, "Hey, Paul, you got somebody sitting in with the band today." And shot over to Paul, and the whole band was there, and there was John Moran, who looks, he's got the gray distinguished hair kind of a thing, and he looks like they had him dressed up in a suit. And they said he's the executive of, and I forget the name of the stool company, but it's they sponsor the band's stools that they all sit on. And so all night he was just going to be sitting with the band, sitting on the stool, and that was the joke. And the whole thing was, it was Matt Roberts cutting over, and that was where the joke was. It was funny in the rehearsal part, but it just made me think about how much footage might exist from the rehearsals of Late Show and what might be out there. And I just it makes me wonder about that. And it just, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that to get your hands on a lot of that stuff that was on the cutting room floor, that would be amazing.
Oh yeah. No, you always record leading up, and then when we do our show, we do 5 or 10 minutes after we say goodnight to everybody, and a lot of it we throw away. Some of it's of Jim. We're like, oh my God, there have been times that we're like, holy crap, I didn't even think about that, and then it's brilliant.
The Irritable Dad Syndrome. How many episodes are you into it now? You're 200 now.
238.
238. How many of them are good?
Well, okay, let me see. There, five of them have been reruns. So no, we tell people the first 25 we put in the vault. Right. And that was mainly because for the longest time we had one microphone we sat in between. We didn't know what we were doing. We kind of know what we're doing now. But it took us a while to get into our flow and to really develop the format of the show and how it sounds today. So I'm proud of it's. Honestly, if you'd asked me if there's any ones that you wouldn't listen to, I would give you a few. But more than not, we're proud of all of them.
Yeah. Oh no, they're fantastic.
So we did one called the Halloween episode, and I think it's our lowest downloaded. And all Mike and I did was we went through our top 10 favorite Halloween movies, and there was a lot of us going, "Oh yeah, I haven't seen that one." Really? No, I haven't seen that one. Oh, did you see this one? No, I didn't see that one either. Oh, huh? Did you say it was scary? Oh yeah, huh? Did you see The Shining? Yeah, I saw that one. Oh, okay. It was.
Oh, it sounds riveting.
It was. It's in the vault, Rob, for a reason. We put it in
you vaulted that one too?
We vaulted that one, yeah.
You sent it down to the Museum of Broadcasting, right?
That's right.
I think Dave used to say something like that.
Shipped it on down. We put it in a box.
Yeah. This is interesting. I had forgotten this point or hadn't paid attention, perhaps. You two haven't been on a show together.
No.
This is the first time you two are together. Okay. I love these community shows. And I've had a few people who have commented on the community shows and saying that we should lean into that a little bit more. And so we're going to this next year. I mean, I think that's great. But yeah, having you two on here, and it's interesting, interesting alchemy. Both of you also professional background in television.
Yes.
Definitely.
we've talked about that a lot. That
Say I'm
many of the folks,
going on 31 years in
31 years
television.
for you. And Rob, you're
Mhm.
around that too, aren't you?
30, actually next year it's going to be 35 years for me. Yeah, in total. Yep, 35 years, just mainly production and master control. Yep, for
Well, Bob,
different
there are no
affiliates.
prizes, okay?
Yeah,
There's no
yeah,
prizes.
okay. Yeah.
Jesus, I've been in 35 years now.
Hey,
Tell you what, though, you know what? It takes some stamina to stay in the television business.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
It
things have
really does.
changed so
You
much.
got
I
to put
mean,
up with a
man.
lot of shit.
Yeah.
You're going to work in the
Well,
television business.
I mean, when we started, everything was on tape. I'm sure you remember. I mean,
Yes.
we would load the tapes for the programs and all
Yes.
the commercials and the PSAs and the promos were all on tapes. And we had, master control. We would load in the tape, set it up to bars and tone, and make sure it was cued, and have our 2-second pre-roll. And
Yep.
we had a big automation machine that they had the robotic arm would grab the tapes, and different tapes would have different commercials and PSAs and promos. And I tell the young people that they just cannot believe it. And now, I mean, everything's computerized, everything's on a server now, but we used to have physical tapes for everything.
Yeah.
Do you remember when they left?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, just little by little, we got more and more automation. Well, in production too. I mean, so much of that is automated. Like where I work, we don't have any camera operators. Our cameras are automated. We don't have anyone sitting
as a camera operator. Yeah.
Yeah, no one's sitting at the audio board. I mean, all of that is it's done through the automation. So yeah, no camera operators, no audio person, no floor director. It's just so much of it is automated. Yeah.
So, Rob, you're talking about all the tapes. So we had, I don't know, at any given time, you'd have on our wall at WJHL, I think 500 commercials or something, each on one 5-minute tape. Okay.
Yeah.
And each tape would have a barcode on it. And then we had the machine, and I can't remember how many commercials you could put in it. I want to say 40, but it may have been more. So there's 40 tapes in this player. And when a light would start flashing, that means that a spot was missing, and you'd put the tape in the machine and you would whatever. So every morning we would do the morning show, the morning news. And after it was over with, and we would all be sitting there and catching our breath. This is when Jack Dempsey, general manager of the station, would walk through, and he'd walk through, and we're sitting there doing nothing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, every day Jack walks in, and we're sitting here on our butts. And so one day I got up and I went over to the wall and I grabbed like 12 tapes and I had them in my arms. And when Jack comes around the door, I start putting these tapes back on the wall. I'm like, oh, hey, Jack, how's it going? Morning, Darin. And he walked on through, and then I'm like, then I put the rest of the tapes away.
Your boss's name was Jack Dempsey?
Jack Dempsey, yeah.
Did he change his name when he got the promotion that he's going to be the boss? Now I'm Jack Dempsey. That now? Like, is that?
Nope. That was always his name. Yeah, good guy. Jack hired me twice. He was fair and always good to me. Very good guy.
Sweet.
And especially, some, bonehead like me who, very often, well, Mystery Hand just came into, wow, there she is.
Oh, we have a special guest.
All right, guys. Look who's here. Hi, what's your name?
Elara,
is this your first time on the Letterman podcast? No, it's not. You were on before. Well, we just think Chris Harris. It's not your first time. Sorry, my granddaughter's here. Say hi to Rob.
Hi.
Oh,
And say hi to Darin.
Hi.
Okay.
Hey, kiddo.
You look into the screen. That's where you're looking. Okay.
I've heard that she's the best granddaughter ever.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Did you have a good Christmas? What did you get for Christmas?
A new room.
A new room? Did you get a room at Mimi and Pa's house? Yeah. Do you love it?
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you. And what did you bring for me?
Do you know what I got for Christmas? I got an old pack of cigarettes.
An old pack of cigarettes. Does that sound like a good Christmas present?
Kind
The
of.
line from the Breakfast Club, I think.
You're very kind.
They were filtered.
Oh, they're unfiltered. That's good. She brought me an Arnold Palmer, boys.
Oh,
Nice.
Half
Cool.
and half. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. Can you say hi, welcome to the Letterman Podcast?
I'm too shy.
You're too shy to say welcome to the Letterman Podcast?
Welcome to the Letterman Podcast.
There you go. All right, wave. Okay. Bye, Laura. Sorry
Boy,
about that,
she's a
boys.
cutie.
How was
Okay,
fun
no
was
problem.
that? Bye, sweetie. Oh, there we go. Alara has, you know what? Alara actually did appear on an episode of the Letterman podcast. She came on when my first appearance was Steve Young, back when we were against the black wall of death at the very beginning. And I call it the black wall of death because that was our first backdrop, and the show is absolutely death. And Darin, you were there.
I was there.
Early on, no, it was Steve Young. And so I'm recording, and suddenly Alara comes down and she just wanders over to me. And Steve Young's like, "Oh, who are you?" And she did a little cameo with Steve Young. Anyway, sorry about that, boys.
No, it's
No
fine.
problem.
No apology necessary.
This is as I said in the intro, this is like us getting together over the holidays, just kind of shooting the bull.
Yeah.
But we did have a reason that kind of predicated this. I'm going to share the screen right now. So Rob, your Facebook group, which by the way, is still growing, like the David Letterman fans Facebook group is still growing all the time.
Yeah, it's doing really well. I think you're 9,000 headed towards 10,000 members. Yeah, it's doing well.
Yeah, and as that's happening, every once in a while, a post comes up where there's quite a bit of interaction with it and people going back and forth. Somebody posted this the other day, and can you guys see that?
Yeah,
Yes.
there it is. Yep.
Somebody posted this: The Tonight Show with David Letterman. The idea of the path not taken. What would have happened if David Letterman got the Tonight Show? And a whole bunch of people who clearly are, in my opinion, a new generation of folks who maybe weren't the age that we were when it all happened. People kind of talking about it, viewing it from a historical standpoint, started ruminating and pontificating as to what might have happened had Dave gotten the show. And there was a whole bunch of perspectives that I really wasn't ready for. I kind of take for granted the fact that many of the people I talk about this to are really far down the rabbit hole on, what happened and have read The Late Shift, many numbers of times and things like that. And a lot of people don't. A lot of these people who were responding to this came at it from a fresh perspective. I was very surprised as to some of the responses to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was I don't know. I mean, I was we were all alive when it happened. We were all, it's safe to say, fans of him moving to CBS. I worked at the CBS station when he came there. So my very first day in television, I was walking through and they were taking me on a tour of the place, my first day, and Dave was doing the feed to the satellite affiliates on WKRC Cincinnati, and he would just, and he did that all day long, and you could tell by the 30th station he was getting sick of it, but I wanted to stand there and watch the feed with him, doing all that. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm starting in TV when he moved over to CBS. But no, the thing is, Dave has said, and I think we've all heard when he said that if he had the job, it would have been the same show. It would have been The Late Show with David Letterman. I don't believe it would have been any different. I mean, he pissed off the execs at CBS almost as much as he did at NBC. So, I mean, like on his final night, he said that Les Moonves was very, very patient with him, with it, with an underline, with an exclamation point, or however he described it. So, I mean, I don't think it would have been any different. Now, would someone have moved over to CBS and challenged the Tonight Show like Dave did with The Late Show? I mean, probably, and I don't know who that would have been, but I don't know.
Yeah, it probably would have been the same show. You're right. If he would have taken over the Tonight Show, one of the main things, and I think Mike brought this up in the Facebook group. Okay, if Dave got the Tonight Show, would he be in Burbank or would he do it from New York? Maybe he would want to move it back to New York like Jimmy Fallon did. And I mean, that was a big part of the show. Dave's show was very New York centric, and it's like New York was kind of like one of the characters in it. And he had Rupert and Mujibur and Sir Jewel and all that. He'd be shooting the stuff out on the streets, and so yeah, you've got to wonder, would it be based out of New York or Burbank? And maybe he could shoot stuff in Burbank, but it would just be on the lot there, on the NBC lot, so it wouldn't have the same character as shooting in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, he went driving around Los Angeles, as he would call it, with Zsa Zsa.
Yeah,
filled the convertible up with tacos.
That's right. Yeah,
drinking Mountain Dew. So I mean, I think he could have taken his talent to any city in this country, or I mean, hell, the stuff that he did in London. So
Yeah.
I mean, the Man on the Streets would have worked anywhere because it was Dave and Dave's writers. I don't think it would have been any different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things to unpack there when it comes to, so ironically, in many respects, one could argue that CBS started this whole thing when they reached out to Jay Leno back in the day. And they were gonna make a deal with Jay. Wanted to make a deal with Jay Leno. One of the executives had given Jay a very rare motorcycle. They wanted to sign Jay Leno to a deal. And Jay's manager at the time, Helen Kushnick, then went to the NBC brass, putting pressure on them, saying, "Do you want to lose Jay? Do you want to lose Jay?" Almost in a way where potentially he would, at some point, compete with the Tonight Show. I don't know if that's necessarily Johnny or not, but the whole goal of that was to get leverage, to give Jay the basically the signed, sealed, delivered deal that he would be Johnny Carson's successor. And it was CBS that predicated that deal, that started that deal. And if it wasn't for the idea of CBS building an 11:30 show that was going to compete, that wasn't, no offense, I'm sure Pat Sajak tried to compete, but to build, someone, I mean, I'm just saying, I
I'm sorry.
I heard he was there I heard he was at the studio for a few hours a day, every day, Pat, busting his butt to try and,
I mean, he had a guest host after like 6 months or something, right? Didn't he? How long was he on before he had a guest host? And I remember I was a kid, I'm like, really? You've already got guest hosts? Okay. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean...
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at Pat Sajak.
And we all should. Unfortunately, nobody did during the show when it was on. But anyway, so it was really, at the end of the day, it was CBS that kind of started the whole thing inadvertently. Mm-hmm. Certainly never being able to predict that they would land David Letterman. Right. But yeah, it was, and then, as these things started to happen, the snowball started going down the hill. I noticed people on that, on the post on the David Letterman fans Facebook page, talking about the idea that Dave was, Johnny's, preference for a replacement. Well, that wasn't public at the time, and right. I thought that was very interesting as well. Johnny was never asked who he thought should replace him. He is never asked to weigh in, as too was true with David Letterman. Dave wasn't asked who should replace him as well. Right. And I thought that was an interesting. So that got me thinking, has there ever been a time where a host has said who should replace them? I don't know if that might be a Malkov or a question for Bill Carter, but I don't know if any host has ever been asked to weigh in on who would replace them.
Didn't Jon Stewart have some kind of deal with the Daily Show after he left, or was he still a producer of the Daily Show after he stopped hosting it?
I believe his name was always in the credits, as it has been for Colbert as well. Even on Late Show, Jon Stewart's names are there. I don't know how. Yeah. I don't know about the day-to-day or decisions like that. If he weighs in on things like that certainly could be a possibility.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting. The idea of, here's the person that has done this show for X amount of time, however long it was. And now they're going to be, going off into the sunset for one reason or another. Who would they like to see do it? But it seems like the network, and it feels like this is the whole thing where you talk about how it's going to be the same show. I don't know when the network was going to get control of the Tonight Show back. And certainly one of the reasons why I think they wanted to keep Jay over Dave, who was clearly over with the audience in such a massive, massive, massive way, such a huge star. They knew that, but the idea of having somebody who would allow the network to control the show, because you got to remember, Johnny Carson owned that show. And he owned it for I believe it well over a decade. And now NBC was going to be getting control of that show back. And this was during the time where these shows literally made the networks hundreds of millions of dollars.
Oh yeah.
Very inexpensive to produce, in contrast to other even weekly shows that would only have 20 episodes a year. These late night shows, minuscule from a budget perspective compared to some of these other shows. And suddenly they're going to be getting control back. Do they want a host who's going to be difficult, or do they want a host that's going to be easy? I think that's one of the reasons why NBC picked him. If Dave would have gotten the Tonight Show, it certainly would have been a very different position because of the awe he had for the show, the fact that he would be moving into Johnny Carson's, chair, so to speak. The person that I talked to before we did the show all but confirmed to me that if they got the Tonight Show, they probably would have moved it to Burbank. And just to hear what you were saying, Darin, like, okay, it would have been the same show, but man, I don't know. Like,
Right.
Because, I mean, going out on the street in New York was so easy for Dave, even in 30 Rock, but then you look at the Ed Sullivan Theater, and I mean, how much that show became a character, or how much that city, I should say, became a character in the show. It would have been very interesting to see a Tonight Show with David Letterman, without that device that they used for so long. I'm certain that they had enough creativity, they would have created something else, but I don't think it would have been the same show.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. With the location, it would have changed things, but I don't think the day-to-day, the monologue, the format, I don't even know that the selection of guests would have changed, because but yeah.
Well, and yeah, as you alluded to also, Mike, I mean, that with Letterman, he would, the control of the Tonight Show was going back to NBC. So with CBS, so much of the magic of that deal was Worldwide Pants, and he had ownership of the Late Show. He had ownership of the Late Late Show, and then Worldwide Pants created Everybody Loves Raymond and some other shows, and also as we've said before, I mean, Letterman turned out fine. Leno turned out fine. I mean, both of them are worth in the neighborhood of $400 million. So I don't think we need to cry too much for Letterman or for Leno, and they turned out fine. But with the Late Late Show, look at that too. Look at what came out of that. You had Tom Snyder, and yes, he was a known quantity to begin with because of the Tomorrow Show, but then with Craig Ferguson and with Craig Kilborn, and Craig Kilborn, I mean, he came out of ESPN, he came out of the Daily Show, and then really, I mean, to get on CBS and the Late Late Show, that was a big break for him. And and as I mentioned, Craig Ferguson and James Corden. So you have to put that into the mix too. Look at the Late Show and also the Late Late Show, and just that whole commodity there, and he had the ownership of that, just like Johnny got with his 1980 contract, got control of the Tonight Show, and then also the control of Late Night with David Letterman. And both of them, Carson Productions and Worldwide Pants, they had hits, they had some misses too. I mean, not everything that Worldwide Pants did was Everybody Loves Raymond. And with Johnny, he had some hits. With Carson Productions, they produced The Big Chill, which was a big hit movie. They produced Amen with Sherman Hemsley. They did. I
didn't know that. That was a Carson production?
Yeah, that was a big hit for Carson Productions. TV's Bloopers and Practical Jokes. That was Ed McMahon and Dick Clark. I mean, and the two of them knew each other decades from way back in Philadelphia.
Back in Philly.
That was a Carson production. So that was a big hit. But yeah, Carson production had a lot of misses too. They were not all gold, just like with Worldwide Pants.
A little known fact about TV's Bloopers and Practical Jokes. You know who used to write for them? Steve Weiner.
Really?
Our friend Steve Weiner.
That's right.
Cool.
Yeah, and Steve and I are going to do an episode here coming up. We're gonna do the definitive I don't know if it's the definitive. It probably is, though. It's the only time that there's been either a commentary or about King of the Z's. We got a really nice print of King of the Z's, which is the student film that Calvert DeForest or Larry Bud Melman was discovered in. And he and I are going to go and do I don't know if we're going to do a commentary over it or if we're just going to do an intro and then watch it and then talk about it afterwards on the Letterman podcast. We're going to be doing that soon. So keep looking out for that. Oh, look at that.
A friend of mine gave me this years ago.
That's fantastic. It's
Fast
fantastic
and
that you would
Cool
just
Club.
have it there too. What is that a newspaper?
No, it's a it's like a poster that you would put outside of a bar or nightclub that would have acts come, little bands and stuff. It's probably one of those that you'd see stapled to the to a light post.
I don't know if Calvert DeForest, what his how much family he has surviving and whatnot, but it certainly lights my heart up to think about the idea that somewhere there might be one of Calvert's descendants who would be looking and seeing that even in 2024, almost 2025, somebody would suddenly randomly on a podcast hold up a poster that they just happen to have there of Calvert DeForest. Like, you talk about a guy who just ended moving more and more and more. I watched his appearance on Tom Snyder the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Just the idea that this guy, and I mean, it delights Steve Weiner to no end, of course, that Calvert, went as far as he did. I love that so much.
I love that the Offspring got him to show up on their Come Out and Play album.
Mm-hmm.
That's something everybody will love, or something like that. I'm like,
Oh,
that was
cool.
Larry Bud Melman.
Yeah.
Just, yeah. Good times, man.
Yeah, he was a character, all right.
Yep.
But the idea of Dave doing the Tonight Show, and one of the things I've watched a few of, Dave's version of the Tonight Show when he would guest host for Johnny Carson. I've got a bunch of those, and I was going through those not too long ago, and the thing about it was very interesting watching Dave do the Tonight Show because he would come in and Doc would be there with him, and it was a different dynamic than it was with Johnny, and he certainly did not look comfortable doing it. Like don't get me wrong, it was entertaining, it was still Dave, it was all these things, but you could certainly feel the weight that he was carrying in doing that.
I mean, my God, he had to have been nervous as hell to be doing that, And then he would leave that and then go to the Comedy Store and tell all his bonehead friends there, it's like, I just left the Tonight Show. He'd usually get back on the picket line or whatever. That's what I was reading about, but that was like around the same time. So he was, doing it for himself and then gaining exposure for all of that. But I mean, my Lord, I would be nervous as hell guest hosting the Tonight Show.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, pinch hitting for Johnny Carson. Holy cow. And I mean, I was thinking also, Johnny and Dave they had part of their career in LA and part of their career in New York. And I was looking up tonight. I mean, Letterman did, people may not know this, but he was the regular on back in the 70s, all of these celebrities had their own variety shows. The Starland Vocal Band that did Afternoon Delight. Letterman was a regular on that show, and so was his buddy Jeff Altman.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was checking that out, information about that this afternoon. So that's going way back. Of course, he did the Mary Tyler Moore variety show. I mean, he did a game show pilot in LA, and then he had his New York period of his career. And
those Wise Guys was it no Wise Guys or what?
I can't remember.
The hell was the name of that show?
I don't know, but it's on YouTube.
Yeah, it is. Michael McKean was one of the celebrity guests on it, right? It looked like the Family Feud.
Yeah.
Yeah. God,
I mean, he did Mork and Mindy because it had a small role in that because he knew Robin Williams, and Dave acknowledged he was not much of an actor, but he did it. He had a small role. He tried out for Airplane. I mean, imagine if Airplane was starring David Letterman instead of Robert Hayes. Just imagine that.
Yeah.
It's I love thinking about Dave hosting the Tonight Show. Like I do. I love thinking about that idea because it clearly was meant to happen the way that it did. It's so funny. You don't know history's being written in the present tense, but it's so funny how these icons, have carved their own legacy, and they're all different. Conan doing the same thing,
Mhm.
Conan, leaving the late night, moving over to podcasting, having, jumped two networks,
Yep.
Conan,
Mhm.
Conan, as well, moving the way that he did. And it's very, very interesting. The idea how still it goes back to what if Dave would have gotten the Tonight Show, and so many years later, people are still kind of going through that. Dave Letterman gets the Tonight Show. You don't see a Samsung fast channel dedicated to
Right.
him. You just don't see it,
No.
and that's what I'm wondering about. Have NBC Universal, am I just daft? Has NBC Universal started utilizing the 30-year run that Jay Leno had on the Tonight Show? Do they utilize that footage at all?
Don't think so.
Isn't that
No.
interesting?
Yeah.
I find that odd.
Yeah.
First off, Jay Leno doesn't have a Don Giller that we know of.
No.
It's funny how, you've got these two guys, they came up together, they both got shows at 11:30, basically at the same time, and within a year and a half of each other. We're on, essentially the same length. Dave did outstretch Jay by a little bit there, but for the most part, the same time. And it's just so interesting how different the shows are. I mean, a big part of it, of course, is Worldwide Pants owning, the footage. They own the show, but at the same time, NBC, same deal. They got their own streaming network. They got Peacock, but the
Right.
archives of the Tonight Show aren't there, are they?
No, but yeah, Saturday Night Live is. I mean, you can go back to 1975 season of Saturday Night Live. Yeah, they have all those on there. But I'm not sure how the copyright stuff works, because also if you go on Worldwide Pants site, yes, they have all the apparel and they have a late night shirt, but it does not say late night with David Letterman.
Yeah.
So but technically that was a Carson production though when he was at NBC. So maybe that plays into it. I mean, just like if you watch Antenna TV and you're watching Johnny Carson on there, it's not the Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson on Antenna TV. They just call it Johnny Carson.
It's just Johnny Carson.
Because it's a copyright issue. That's right. And it's maddening, to tell you the truth. I mean, they strip all the music out of it for not just Antenna TV. I mean, it also airs on Pluto TV. I mean, there's clips on Amazon, but the streaming services, they strip all the music out of it. You're not going to see a musical guest on there. They put in this generic music when the guests come out and when they're coming back from the breaks. And man, that it's disappointing, because I mean, Doc and the band were a huge part of that show. And just like with Dave, I mean, you think about the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, how pivotal that was to the genre of jazz. Just like with Letterman, I mean, look at Letterman with classic rock and contemporary rock, and how much Paul did and Dave did to promote classic rock and contemporary rock, and look at how many people discovered these great bands and great performers through Letterman show. I mean, I didn't know anything about Warren Zevon until David Letterman started talking about him. I knew very little about Foo Fighters, and you can fill in a lot of these different Vintage Trouble. If people have never watched Vintage Trouble on Letterman, you have to go to YouTube, put in David Letterman Vintage Trouble. As Dave said, they blew the roof off the dump. They were an incredible band. I mean, so much charisma. You got to check out Vintage Trouble.
Well, I mean, when St. Paul and the Broken Bones were on, I was like, holy crap, that was one of those, I had it on VHS. I rewound it and watched it, rewound it, watched it. I don't know how many times I watched them do that performance. Bought the CD, and just over the summer, like a month or two ago, I was in Texas at the State Fair, and they were performing for free, and I saw them, and it was amazing. And I wouldn't have gone to it had it been for Dave, And
I know Mike has talked about that group called The Heavy. The Heavy was great on there.
Oh, I love The Heavy. To this day, they just released another batch of music not too long ago, and I mean, I wouldn't have known about them if it wasn't for Letterman, and they're one of my favorite bands to this day. I mean, watching Dave break bands and break comedians and things like that was so good. Do either of you have Samsung? Have you been watching The Fast at all? Like, I don't have Peacock up here in Canada, and I don't have a Samsung TV, so I haven't been watching it. Ironically, my parents have. Are they doing the same thing? Like, do you hear Paul and the band playing it all, or is all the music stripped out on the same way it is for Carson?
It's The few times I've watched it, they were doing like a best of Oprah Winfrey, and it was clip segments. And then I saw some of the best of Jim Carrey, and then I saw some of the best of Rupert on the Street doing that. And then there's one other, and it's they compile like 5-10 minutes worth of clips and play them. And so no, it's like they don't go to, they don't go to Paul, and they don't come in and out of commercial breaks, and they haven't been doing, entire episodes.
Yeah, so
Which
there's
I
the
didn't
music
think,
rights
I didn't think they
issue.
would.
Okay,
Huh?
yeah.
There's the issue with the music rights, just like with Carson, and
Yeah.
but I don't know how it works on YouTube though, because like if you watch these Carson clips on the official Carson YouTube channel, they will have musical acts on there, and you do hear Doc and the band and stuff. So
Right.
I don't know if they pay less for YouTube rights, musical rights, or I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I don't know how they get around that, because it's different. It's not over air. It's I don't know how they get around it.
It's the ones and zeros. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a lot more flexibility with YouTube. Like, for example, like up here in Canada, I was able to, for whatever reason, one of our cable providers, they wanted to do some local access stuff. And so they took, I think it's 30 of our Letterman podcast episodes, and they've put them up on streaming. So that the cable system, you can actually find it and you can actually watch it there. But I can't do another season. The reason I can't do another season is I won't change my set. So that now, this wasn't the case earlier, like a couple of years ago or a year and a half ago when they took the 30 episodes. They said my set was fine, but now they're saying, well, if we're going to do that again, you have to have separate episodes with a separate set. There are certain things on your set that are copyright, and we can't show them on broadcast television. And
Like
what we
what?
are is considered broadcast television. So that might be part of it as well.
Have you looked at them and said, "Do you know who I am?" I'm Mike F word Chisholm. I'm not changing my set. If you want the show, you get the show. If not, I'm calling somebody else.
I don't know if there's a human on the planet that I could say those words to and it would work in the way that you're describing. I don't think that is something that
Oh my
could
God.
happen.
Irritable Dad Syndrome used to be on cable access.
Did it
And,
really?
yeah, we were on for, I don't know, 10, 12 weeks or something like that. And I can't even remember what time we were on, but we were in between like squirrels mating in a cage and some guy who likes to collect hammers,
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, I love that guy.
I was talking to Mike about it. I'm like, I don't think anybody is seeing this. And we would put so much time into the video portion of it, as we do. It's because Irritable Dad Syndrome is mainly an audio podcast.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of videos on our socials and stuff like that. So, but it was just too much work for two little people to see it. So we finally just pulled the plug on it. And they asked us again if we want to,
If you want to re-up.
we want to throw it back on there again. But I'm like, I'm not changing my set.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Like, part of the thing here is putting up these things that were official, and
I can't even imagine what's in your set that's copyright that they can't show. That's
literally okay. So back there, the Emmy folder, there's no way
Yeah.
they would show the Emmy image for sure. Even though this book here, the CBS, the Late Show, the yearbook, as Rupert calls it,
yeah.
the CBS logo's in the top corner there. So even though it's not an official book that was ever released,
Mhm.
there's a copywritten logo. There's part of the Rolling Stone. They probably, even though I could get permission from Mark Carson, they probably wouldn't want, his book, Rupert's mug. I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you about when you had Irritable Dad Syndrome on cable access though. I'm super curious about that, because your show, like, I can see why you'd say it is mostly an audio show, because the way you produce that, and that's you. Let's give the shout out to you. If anybody here has listened to an episode of the Irritable Dad Syndrome,
Mhm.
Darin's the guy that puts all of the things together, the fake commercials, the sound effects, all of the the world of the Irritable Dad Syndrome is a very produced world. Did you have to do anything extra to get the cable access version of the show done? Like, were they different shows, or were you able to make them what
They
you
were,
basically
yeah,
heard?
they were different shows.
Yeah.
They were totally different shows because we still bleeped out or censored out our language. And we didn't have to we actually don't have to on our audio version, but we think it's funny when it's censored out. So
Yeah.
anytime you hear a bang or a quack or something, I think it's funny.
It is
And Mike
funny.
agrees. So, but we would still have to do that. But on the video version, it had to be exactly an hour.
Yep.
And some of our shows are 108, some of them are 45.
Right.
And for that version of the show, we didn't have room to put in the commercials with Dave Lay.
Right.
And
I gotcha.
that really bothered me because he is an integral part of the podcast. People love listening to the commercials that Dave Lay reads. He's our announcer, and he's fantastic. He's a long friend of mine. And I was like, it really bugs me that we're not having Dave and the stupid commercials that I write in there.
Was he a
We're
booth announcer?
sponsored by Whompers All Beef Footlong Hot Dogs. Okay, they've been our official sponsor for almost 2 years now. It's not a product. And I wrote that because of Crystal Clear Party Ice. I was like, I want a product just like Crystal Clear Party Ice to sponsor our show, and it's Whompers All Beef Footlong Hot Dogs. And their slogan is, get a ruler and measure it yourself. If it's not a foot long, they'll give you your money back guaranteed, right? And I have a neighbor who listens to the show. He went to the local grocery store looking for Whoppers.
Oh,
and he was asking the guy in the meat department, do you have any Whoppers? The guy didn't have a clue what the hell.
Advertising works. That's proof.
Yeah, that's right.
Advertising works.
Yeah.
But yeah, it bugged me because I couldn't put Dave in in the version that ran on cable access, and it's a huge part of our show.
You know what? To pivot just a little bit to bring it back to the Barbara Gaines show, I've had people asking me about the peanut butter that they what was the peanut butter that they were advertising on the Barbara Gaines show as a sponsor? What's the name of that peanut butter? Somebody was saying to me, I've been looking all over for it and I can't find it at all. Do you have an in for this peanut butter? And I immediately, when I watched the Barbara Gaines show, when they brought up the peanut butter, I thought, oh, this is funny. They're incorporating gag products into this again. I immediately thought it was a gag product. I didn't think it was real. And the guy was persistent. He's like, no, I'm certain it's a real product. And I bet you it's great. I'm like, all right. I don't know if that's,
No, one of these days I'm going to be out, and when Irritable Dad Syndrome, when it just takes off, okay, one of these days I'm going to be walking down the street and I'm going to see somebody wearing a Whoppers All Beef Footlong Hot Dog t-shirt. And I'm going to know that that's a fan.
That's what happened to, I don't know if Steve talked about this on the podcast or not. He might have when we were at dinner that night, Darin. I don't know if you know this or not, but like the Steve Weiner and Carl Tiedemann actually appeared on Letterman, like in the first year of Late Night with David Letterman, and they would show footage from something called Vespucci Films. And that's what King of the Z's, the student film that they did with Calvert, it was about Vespucci films, and they would, so anyway, they were, it was all a gag, all of it was. There was nothing that was real about it, but they recorded it and they presented it like it was all straight ahead documentary. Right. Similar to, what would become, it's commonplace today. Spinal Tap kind of did it and Albert Brooks did it and whatnot. But that's what they did. Well, years later, somebody, and I believe was it the Aspen Film Festival or I forget which one it was. It wasn't Aspen. It was one of the other ones. But suddenly Steve caught wind of the fact that there were Vespucci Studios shirts and merchandise and whatnot, and he and Carl weren't getting a piece of it. It was just fans who had decided it had become this thing, it had become this cult thing, and we're going to talk about that when we do the King of the Z's thing. Isn't it funny when people will take products? I think about The Simpsons and I think about Mr. Sparkle. By the way, written by Donnet Carey, a former Letterman writer and head writer for that matter. That Mr. Sparkle, that was his. and different little products that are in some of these shows that people will then take and bootleg and create merchandise for. Won't it be fun when someone does that for something from the Irritable Dad Syndrome podcast?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, so you both have Samsung. You both have watched some of the Letterman Fast channel.
It's great. It's awesome being, because for the past 10 years, and Rob, I promise I'll let you speak here. God, Darin, shut up.
No,
it's great because for years now, we've been watching clips on YouTube, on our laptops or on our whatever, but now we can watch it on our big screen TVs again. It's great. Take it away, Rob.
Yeah, it is. It is cool. It's great to see it. When I saw these articles about Fast Channel, I didn't know what that meant. I'll tell the truth. I thought that Fast was maybe tied into Letterman auto racing or something like that, but no, but it's not. But I've watched a bit. I haven't watched as much as I would like, but and I know that Conan has his own channel on there too. There's a 24/7 Conan channel that's also available through Samsung TV. So, but you do have to. They have commercials now and then. So you're seeing through commercial breaks. But and Conan has been up there for maybe a year or two. Yeah.
Is Conan only just a TBS show?
Is it TBS Conan? Is it any
it's TV. It's just TBS Conan. It's not it's not NBC late night with Conan and well, another thing I was going to mention, you talk about the 11:35 shows and they get all the glory, but you look at the history of the 12:35 a.m. shows and what Letterman did and what Conan did in that time slot. And yes, it would be great if Letterman would have gotten the Tonight Show and all that, but it is an 11:35 show, and you have to. I think there's more restrictions with those, and you can be a little bit more crazy if you're at 12:35 a.m. and some of the most groundbreaking stuff that was done by Conan and Letterman was at 12:35. So I think that's another thing to consider. But of course, people, they want to move up. They want to get to the 11:35 slot, and it's more money and all kinds of different things like that. And so a lot of people don't want to stay at 12:35, but there is a lot more freedom, I think. And so there are some advantages to that.
My God, can you imagine if Craig Ferguson had been moved to 11:30?
Yeah, I don't think
no way.
No.
Yeah.
No way.
He would not want to be more mainstream. No.
No, the whole thing of them letting us do what we want. I think Ferguson's probably the ringleader of that concept. The idea that he could do whatever he wanted. Nobody cared. Nobody was looking at what they were doing. And Ferguson had the extra layer of protection because CBS, even if they were looking, it was a Worldwide Pants show, and Worldwide Pants owned that hour. So they could, as long as the Pants brass was a Pants brass. Yeah. As long as they were happy, that's really all that mattered by that point. As long as Peter LaSalle was happy with what was going on there, that was good enough for them. Whereas it's not the same. Although that being said, I was just listening to a real podcast, Inside Late Night with Mark Malkoff. Man, my word, I'm so happy for him doing a podcast again. I'm so happy about that. And they had a writer, and I'm trying to remember, was it Reinman? I don't think it was Reinman. They had a writer who had written for Fallon on both incarnations, when he hosted Late Night and when he hosted the Tonight Show, and he talked about how different. He's like, oh yeah, that joke could have gotten away at 12:35. It wouldn't get away at 11:35. Same host, and it's a completely 1 hour is a completely different world. It's a completely different ball game.
It is,
and to that point, you can certainly see why back in the day NBC was wondering about Dave, because that show, wouldn't play. And even though they did get a chance to do what they wanted to do at CBS, at the Grand Theater and all of that stuff, it is a very, very different show. Late Show is a very different show than Late Night was. It just is.
Yeah.
And that was Dave still being able to do whatever he wanted to do because he walked over to CBS and didn't have the constraints that he would have had if he would have gotten the Tonight Show and NBC would have gotten control back. I can only imagine the micromanaging that would have happened with Dave if that were the case.
Yeah, they would not be good with the micromanaging. And sure, yeah, Johnny wanted him to take over, but in the end, it boiled down to the top brass at NBC and the executives. Frankly, I don't think they like being called pinheads, and they did not like the thing with Dave showing up at the GE headquarters with the fruit basket and talking about the GE handshake, and Warren Littlefield and the rest. They didn't really like that, and they saw Leno as more of a team player, kiss up if you want to put it that way. But yeah, Leno would do absolutely whatever they wanted to do, but people love Letterman because he is sarcastic and he thumbs his nose at show business. Letterman thumbs his nose at management and all of that, and he's kind of a rebel, and he's on the outside looking in and all that kind of stuff. So that's why people love Dave, and people can say, well, Leno had better ratings or whatever. Well, yeah, but still, Letterman show is really memorable. What Letterman did on late night and on late show, I think it's much more memorable, and it's going to stand the test of time much more than Jay Leno's Tonight Show. And I think Letterman is always going to be, he's going to be in the category of Steve Allen and Jack Parr and Johnny Carson for decades to come. And I don't think we can say the same about Jay Leno.
Well, yeah, so many people have said that Letterman broke the mold, or not so much broke the mold, but I mean, Letterman's show was very unique. Absolutely. And sure, yes, he was sarcastic, and but over time, I mean, you saw how much he matured and evolved into a gifted interviewee, right? Or interviewer.
Yeah. Yes.
Me. Words. Yeah. He evolved so much after he went to CBS and was in that he got in that different time slot and had, I wouldn't say he had a higher caliber of guests, but I mean, he did have, my God, that's when, like, Al Gore, would you think Al Gore would have been on Late Night with David Letterman?
Yeah.
He went on Late Show, and then people started taking him seriously when he was in that. And so he had to be more serious, and he learned how to really do an interview. And now that he's on, My Next Guest Needs No Introduction, good Lord, the interviews he does on that. I mean,
they're fascinating. They're outstanding. Yeah,
really, really, really in depth. And people look at the late night years and they think of the Norm Macdonald, hey, you got any gum? That style. And God, what's wild is, like, you look at a really old interview with Dave, and he would interrupt the guests a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was entertaining. He was giving the audience something that they enjoyed. But, that's why Cher thought he was an asshole.
Yep.
So can I say that on this podcast?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, nobody's watching. Go ahead. You say whatever you like.
Oh, yeah. My next guest is so great. Even if you don't care about the guest, if you're not a huge Miley Cyrus fan, and I'm not, but I'm going to watch it because of David Letterman, and he makes it interesting. Even he makes the guest interesting. And that's another thing too. I mean, Dave didn't get the franchise of the Tonight Show, but do we tune into the Tonight Show, or do we tune in to see David Letterman or Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon, or does the franchise matter that much? Because to me, it's all about David Letterman.
Yeah,
that's who I want to see.
It's basically how Bill Carter it's basically how Carter finished the Late Shift was, that Johnny took the franchise with him. That it wasn't the Tonight Show, it was Johnny Carson, and that kind of brought it up for grabs there at that point. I asked you about Peacock earlier because we don't have it up here in Canada. In Canada, it's the rights are completely different up here, so I don't have Peacock. I can see some of the shows on Peacock through some deals that NBC Universal has made with Canadian networks and things like that. So I've seen St. Denis Medical and some of these other ones that are or no, St. Denis is on what's the one with Steph Curry? That's not on NBC, right?
I have no idea, but I don't know.
Oh, there's a really? There's a show with basketball player Steph Curry. Now I got to think about what it's on. I think it's on Peacock only.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't have the service here, the streaming service of Peacock, but one would think that NBC would somehow find a way to highlight the Tonight Show on that. Is that not like a natural? Like, to me, that's like their franchise show that has gone on longer than Saturday Night Live by a long shot. It has stood the test of time at the Tonight Show with NBC so long. One would think on Peacock they would have some sort of like a best of type situation with the Tonight Show, but they don't have anything like that. It
well,
shocks me.
They do have some Carson shows on there, and I think that they do have some of the Fallon Tonight shows on there, but
on Peacock, okay,
yeah, on Peacock, yeah. But and yeah, like we talked about before, the music is going to be stripped, just like with Saturday Night Live. Yes, they have Saturday Night Live episodes going back to 1975, but they have no musical guests, and they don't have the music coming back from commercials and things like that. And some of the various skits from SNL have been taken out too. I don't know why, but not all of the skits are on Peacock. But Peacock even has I got excited when I heard that they had some Dick Cavett shows on there, but there's very few of them. I mean, maybe like 6 or 8 Dick Cavett shows, which was really disappointing because his ABC show that Cavett did was just outstanding. But yeah, there's just a handful of Dick Cavett shows on Peacock, and I don't know why there's so few of them on there.
Yeah, it's super interesting. By the way, the Steph Curry show is called Mr. Throwback, and it's on Peacock. But up here in Canada, we get it on one of our networks, and just like a lot of the other Peacock stuff. Yeah, it's very, very, very interesting. So but it's funny though too how the Fast Channel, the Letterman Fast Channel, from everything I've heard about it, again, like you mentioned it earlier, one of you, I think Darin did. It's like conventional TV again. It's like the old has become new again because you're watching. There is no recording. You don't know what's going to happen, and there's commercials for it on it.
Yes.
Is it just 30-second commercials, one commercial, 10 seconds? Are they like YouTube commercials? What is it like?
It's like a traditional 2-minute break.
Yeah, but it's not complete episodes. It's just these various clips. So it's not completely like, what's old is new again. It's not the whole show. You don't tune in and see the opening sequence and the monologue and all that.
They have this transition where you see a lot of the new Dave face over blue.
Really?
Yeah, and it's Paul's intro, and Letterman TV flies in, and then a bunch of Dave faces flies across the screen, and then it zigzags, and then it cuts to something else, and then I don't know whether it's a filler or just a transition before they load up another 5 or 10 minute clip package, but so it's like you got time. It's like I don't know if these kids today remember watching traditional TV because we were explaining it to our kids. You had to wait till the commercial came on to go to the bathroom. You couldn't pause it. If you missed an episode, you missed it.
Yeah.
You had to wait till summer to hope that they reran it. You're constantly checking TV Guide to see if it's going to be back on or whatever. And they would run episodes 2-3 times. So, but the world of streaming is just amazing, and we're trying to get our kids to wrap around what it's like now to watch anything you want, anytime you want, right there. And my God, we did not have that luxury. But watching Letterman now, you're right. It's like you don't know what clip is coming up next, and then when a commercial comes on, you go get a soda or go to the bathroom or check and make sure the door's locked. I don't know what you do, but yeah, it's weird.
Now, really, the only appointment television is sports. If you're a big fan of the Detroit Lions, you're going to tune in at 4:30 or whatever, and you're going to watch it at that time. So that's that sports. It's like appointment television, but no, with other shows, you don't really have that.
Well, that or local news, because when I worked at the NBC affiliate here in Cincinnati, that's the first thing that they would sell. They would sell local news hard because people didn't record it. And I'm afraid that's going away. I don't know if it is or not, but I know.
Yeah, and that's the moneymaker. Yeah, you can pack it full of local commercials, so that they definitely promote the local news, and much these days is going over to the websites too. They promote the websites a lot on these local stations. Yeah.
We just lost our CBC affiliate, local news. It's since I was born, we had a television studio and we had local news like all the way. I'm 48 now, and we just lost it. It's being broadcast out of Vancouver now. Our local news now. It seems like it is certainly up here anyway. It seems like it's certainly moving into that. And It's interesting. There's a couple things about the fast that it's combining a few things. The idea of this old school mentality. Like, I'm super curious if all of these clips, it feels like all of these clips are not available on YouTube. Like, it feels like there's a whole bunch of Worldwide Pants stuff now that is happening that hasn't been represented on YouTube at this point with the Letterman YouTube channel. So that's interesting to me, that there might be clips that the only way you can see those clips is on the fast, and you can't really record them unless you have, like, the average person. You can't just go and buy something that, you can hook your computer up. Like, you've got StreamYard and some of the OBS things that you can hook up to these systems here, and you can, record, terabytes worth of data that way. But it's not the easiest thing in the world to just hit record on the way that we're used to. So it's interesting that some of these clips might not have been seen forever. They might not have made one of Don Giller's, compilations. They may not have gone on to the YouTube, the Letterman YouTube channel at this point. And you see it, no real way to record it, and it's gone. And unless you want to wait till the loop comes back around again, you're not going to see it again if you came into the room at the wrong time. Oh, what was that? Oh, too bad. So sad. And that is like what it was when we were kids before we got VCRs. I think that's very interesting that that's part of this.
That reminds me, when I was much younger and lived at home, and I would be out if I was spending the night at a friend's house or whatever I was doing, visiting my dad, something. There were times where I had forgotten to program the VCR to record Dave, and I would call my mom. Like, can you record Dave for me? And you could hear the blank stare on her face over the phone of
time record.
And I would try to explain to her how to program the VCR, and she said, I'll probably be up. I'll record it for you. So what would she do is she would put the tape in and start recording like at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And you would have 3.5 hours to fast forward through. But you know what? She still recorded Dave. So
there you go. So you got it.
There you go.
Back in the day, remember, like it was such a high wire act. And it was. I recorded SNLs before I was, of age to be able to be allowed to watch them. Saturday Night's Main Event, and Letterman. Yeah. And I mean, you know what? If there was even a blip in the power, a power outage for even just a half a second, that was all gone, because all you got was the flashing 12 then at that point on the VCR. And it's so interesting that we have seen this in our lifetime. The other thing about the Fast channel that's very interesting to me, that, like you said, the best of Jim Carrey, things like that. One of the things that I loved about watching, Dave goes off the air in 2015. It's almost been 10 years. How crazy is that?
Right.
And at that point, that's when Don Giller's channel started really, really expanding. And what I love that Don did in many, if not most of his compilations, were he did them in chronological order. So if it was a Julie Roberts one, you literally got to see, Julie Roberts' first appearance.
Yes.
Dave's an interviewer at that skill set, at that level, that experience level, moving all the way up to the very end, and everything in between. And you saw the evolutions. Yeah. And to me, it created one of the reasons why I gravitated to it so much. And I would take the effort to take it from the computer to watch it on the screen like it was back in the day. It was harder to do that 10 years ago than it is now. And I loved that it was a new way to watch Dave, because now you're watching the jokes and the things that happened then in the cultural references, but then you're also watching the evolution of both he and whoever the guest was. The Charles Grodin compilation is a fantastic example of that. And you watch both these things changing, and that's an element that they are putting into the Fast. It's not the whole thing the way that Don would do it, where he's a completionist and he would have the whole thing, but that's an element that they are putting in. The best of Jim Carrey, you're seeing Dave and Jim, evolving from his first visit before Dave was wearing glasses, things like that, all the way up to the last one where, both men are older and well, maybe not wiser, but certainly more experienced.
it's debatable if Carrey's wiser.
He was on the final episode too. Jim Carrey was involved in that monumental top 10 on the final episode in 2015. That was incredible, as you guys remember. I mean, just to see like Dave will want to make sure it was the creme de la creme, all of his very favorite guests involved in that top 10, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and all of his favorites.
Dave, I always thought you were a bit of an overactor. The shit with his hair and
The weird walk backwards. Yeah. I think we've said it on this show, but I'm sure I've said it before. Interesting. Jim Carrey on the very last Late Show with David Letterman, and he was the guest on the very last Larry Sanders Show.
Yeah.
That's
which
right.
Is interesting.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is a long time ago, but
yeah.
I thought that was an interesting footnote.
Anybody with any interest in late night TV has to check out Larry Sanders' show. Yeah, that is the ultimate show for a late night fan to watch. It was so.
I loved Gary Shandling, everything about Gary Shandling, and I loved when he was guest hosting for Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he was so effortlessly great at doing that. At least he appeared effortless. He appeared effortless in doing that. And I remember, when Johnny was leaving, and I didn't really think that, I didn't know what I know now about Dave and being potential or whatever. And I thought Gary would have been great taking over the Tonight Show.
Well, I think he was in the conversation, but he wanted to do Larry Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about legacy and how these people that we love so much, they've all blazed their own trail. Like, really, at the end of the day, the ones that we find iconic, and many of us, and again, it's not a slight against Jay. Like, I have people who criticize me sometimes about slighting Jay. I don't think I attack Jay really at all. I'm just very team Dave.
I agree.
I definitely don't want to be disrespectful. He's, God, if there was one gripe about Jay, it's the fact that we never got to see him and Dave go at it again after 1991 or whatever that last appearance was. I loved watching he and Dave and Jay together and interacting back and forth with each other. I love that.
I mean, you can't deny that Jay works hard.
Oh yeah.
I mean, my God,
nobody's going to call him lazy. Nobody.
No, he's a phenomenal joke teller and joke maker, and he was, clearly. But I take a look at the ones that I love, and a lot of the, I don't want to say critics and writers and people who just, I mean, maybe it's an echo chamber, and this is just who are all around me in my life or whatever. But if you look at them, they all had very unique runs. Johnny's run was extremely, it was its own. Dick Cavett was his own run. It was very, very different than Johnny, and it was different. Conan, Letterman, Gary Shandling is another one. Gary Shandling, the idea, yes, he could do. He's one of the guys who could do this. Seinfeld talks about the idea of the guys that do this job, and it watches them, the way that they tick. The line from Larry Sanders it was Rip Torn's line. The talk show host, he's part man, part desk. It's a very unique person that can do this. And the ones that I love, like Gary Shandling's run, yes, he's one of those animals that could do it, but he decided not to do it. Instead, he was going to make one of the smartest, most groundbreaking shows on television with the Larry Sanders Show that kind of, took it apart, deconstructed it in a different way, and did the behind the scenes stuff as well and made it entertaining that way. His run, unique. Tom Snyder's run, unique.
Yes. So so instead of doing what so many other people had done before, with the hosting a talk show, he did something just ridiculously unique on HBO with Larry Sanders. Nobody had created a show like that before. So you got to applaud him for that.
So did Dave when he created the only franchise ever. This is some of the people on that thread. Again, I don't really chime in too much on some of these things, but again, Jay being number one, they missed the point. They missed the point. Yeah. There had never been a franchise ever that competed with the Tonight Show. Right. It didn't ever happen. It had never happened before. And Dave, who revered the show, was the guy that created that. And that's the part that some of these people don't, they just, they miss that. They miss that part. Mm-hmm. And that's part of Dave's unique legacy in the fact that he left. He didn't just take the keys.
Yeah.
And then hand the keys off to somebody else. Right. Neither did Conan. Although Conan was going to be slated to do that, in my opinion, serendipity created something much better. Team Coco happened because he lost the show. Yeah. Because he lost the Tonight Show, and now Conan's got this crazy unique legacy That is wonderful. And I mean, I know Rob. I don't know, Darin, if you listen to very much of Conan's podcast. I know Rob and I both do, and I
Love
mean,
Conan's
they're
podcast.
fantastic. They're
Yeah,
so
They are.
good.
yeah.
And again, would not have happened if he had
Right.
kept the Tonight Show. It just wouldn't have happened.
Well, Conan does this great. If you go on YouTube, he did the commencement speech at Dartmouth in 2011 or 10 or something like that. Hysterical. I mean, he's killing. He is just killing. He is hysterically funny the whole entire thing. And his pacing was insane because he gradually would be less funny and then more serious. And he closed with, talking about how Johnny Carson wanted to be Jack Benny, right?
Mhm.
And when he realized that he couldn't be Jack Benny, he became Johnny Carson, right? And he created the Tonight Show. David Letterman wanted to be Johnny Carson. When he wasn't able to, he did the same thing for himself. Just like Conan wanted to be Letterman and then created his own thing. And so his lesson was don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Because, out of the failures come these great successes, and you won't know it at the time, right? And I'm like, oh my God, Conan, that was the most amazing commencement address I'd ever seen from Conan, right? And I was not expecting it, but it's insane. So yeah.
Well,
go ahead,
I think
Rob.
with Leno personally, I mean, I really enjoyed Leno's CNBC show, Jay Leno's Garage,
Yeah, that was a perfect
because
show for him.
I think that's really his passion. I mean, his passion is classic cars and classic motorcycles, and he can be
Denim
on that
shirts.
show and the denim shirts, yeah, sure. So I mean, yeah, he could get the comics on there, but that was really his passion. I think was the classic cars, much more than just doing a traditional late night show. So you got to give him credit for stepping outside the box and doing that show for CNBC. And so, but he knew that late night was a road where you could do really well financially. And people talked about how legendary Leno's work ethic is. And he would bank his, Tonight Show money and go out on the road and use that money. And so
I've heard that he's still never spent any of it.
Yeah. No.
I hear it's all in his foundation now. Yeah, it's. By the way, you talk about apparel. Johnny Carson had his Johnny Carson suit line. Letterman, obviously, amazing apparel right here, available at the Worldwide Pants Store and at Rupert G's hello-deli.com. How the hell doesn't Jay Leno have some sort of a deal with a denim shirt company? How is there not?
You think he would?
Like,
well, and
seriously,
they called the Canadian tuxedo, with the shirt and the pants all denim.
Yeah, that guy would be. Yeah, that guy would be up here, doing his thing at the Bay. The Jay Leno denim collection available exclusively at the Bay here in Canada. That would be amazing. You know what? Talking about Letterman talking about failure. Somebody put it up on one of our Facebook groups. I forget if it was yours or ours, Rob, but they put up. Somebody recently asked John. They asked Jon Stewart a question at one of the warm up parts. Oh, Darin just disappeared. Hopefully he comes back. At one of the Daily Show warm-ups, or it was afterwards, where the audience got to do a Q&A, and they asked Jon Stewart about if he had gotten any good advice. What's the best advice you've ever gotten? And then Jon Stewart pulled out a thing from David Letterman, and it was during he was talking about how Dave was a guest on Jon Stewart's very last Jon Stewart show. And Dave said to him, he said, "Hey, this is way before the Daily Show. Jon Stewart had a show that didn't pick up on syndication the way that they wanted, and so it got canceled." And Dave said to him, "Don't mistake cancellation for failure." And you go back and you think about how Dave had the morning show canceled. And don't get me wrong, when he talks about it now, you could still feel the emotion there. But at the same time, the perspective, though, looking back going, okay, if Conan didn't lose the Tonight Show, if Dave didn't have his morning show canceled, if one of these things didn't happen, they wouldn't have this legacy that we're talking about here to this day. And Darin's coming back now. And I think that that's a very, very important point, that, sometimes people do mistake a bump in the road for failure, when really that bump is the thing that's necessary to kind of give you the trajectory to go to that next level.
Sure. Well, yeah. Even with Johnny Carson, people may think, well, Johnny was always rich and famous. Johnny really didn't have problems. He didn't have to pay his dues. Johnny had a lot of failures. He had a show called Earn Your Vacation that was a flop. He had the Johnny Carson show that was in prime time on CBS.
Yep.
That was not successful. So he had a show called Carson Cellar, which was local on an LA local affiliate. And so that did not set the world on fire. But yeah, as you said, people pay their dues, and those quote unquote failures can pave the way to big successes too.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, I'm really, really grateful that we could take some time here during the holidays to just get together and to talk and to do this. I appreciate both of you and your friendship and the support that you've given this show. We're 2.5 years. We're, in 4 months, this show's going to be 3 years old. And
Wow.
both of you were there right at the very, very start. And for whatever reason, probably politeness, encouraging me to do this, encouraging this to happen. I just want to say thank you guys for being part of the ride here. And I want to do more of these community shows. I've got a few of the Letterman staffers who are game for it. And I just want to say, you guys were the OGs. You were there right from the start. I think 2025 could be a pretty cool year for the Letterman podcast, and both of you are a part of that. I just want to say thank you both for believing in this thing right from the beginning, or at least putting up with it.
Well, you're welcome. And yeah, I'm proud of everything that you've accomplished. I've said it before, when you started this, I thought it was going to be a podcast with Letterman fans.
Yeah.
I really didn't think, I had no idea you were going to get the caliber of people that you've gotten on your show. So damn. Yeah, it's insane. So yeah, congratulations. You've done a great job with it.
Yeah, it's impressive, some of the guests. I mean, I think my favorites have been Paul and the other people from the band. I mean,
Yeah.
the band members have just absolutely been fascinating. I mean, Paul and Anton, and Felicia's episode was outstanding. And Will Lee being on a couple times. Oh man, just really, really interesting shows. I know Darin was show number 1. I think I was show number 5 or 4 or something like that. So yeah, we were on the ground floor, and I'm picky about podcasts I listen to. I've talked about my love for the Carson podcast. I listened to every single episode of the Carson podcast and just loved it. But it's been the same with Letterman podcast. I haven't missed a single episode, and I love it. I love we brought up Conan's podcast, which I think is outstanding. The Saturday Night Live one that Dana Carvey and David Spade do is really good. But
oh my God, Fly on the Wall is a great podcast.
Yeah,
great.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm discerning as far as what I listen to. Yeah, Fly on the Wall, and they have Superfly on Fridays, which sometimes tackle some really serious subjects. But all of those are really good podcasts. Yeah.
No.
Well, I appreciate this very, very much. And like I said, we're stumbling forward. And so for those who have put up with this show, thank you for that. And believe it or not, we are trying to get better at them, and hopefully that will be apparent sooner than later. But really, at the end of the day, I love both of you, and I hope that this end of 2024 here is the last few days kind of trickle away. I just want to say thank you for being in my life, and I can't wait for what 2025 has in store for all of us. And certainly you guys are a part of the Letterman podcast family, as is the entire audience. Hey, jump in on the Facebook group, become part of the family. The whole thing about this is community. Irritable Dad Syndrome, you guys are building a community. Rob, you've got multiple communities that have been built with the Facebook groups that you moderate, with all the different genres, from comedy to, the Rat Pack, Sinatra and those guys, Carson and Letterman, of course. And I just want to say thanks so much for doing this. This is the internet really, all the three of us can remember life before the internet, and that doesn't even, like, I look at like my youngest and doesn't even understand what life before the internet might have even looked like. Can't even fathom it.
Right.
Can't even fathom it. And one of the things that I think it did more than anything is it brought people who have common interests together. and it's still doing that to this day. It's what it did at the very, very beginning in during its infancy, and it still does it today. It just does it in better ways. Instead of just going texting back and forth with each other and then eventually to email and all this sort of stuff, now we're getting to do it on a visual way, and bringing in people who are part of this. Like I want to have a community show with Will Lee one day, and I mean, you'll both be invited to that. I mean, I know you both love the music of it, and Will, I mean, you know, we have Will at will whenever we want him. We can kind of have him as long as he's not, you know, too busy. And isn't that what the best part of the internet is being able to connect? And that's what this show is.
When used properly, the internet can be fantastic. It can be amazing. I mean, I have a friend who he said he had to get off of Facebook because it was just too volatile. And I'm like, dude, you were starting all the arguments.
You're using it wrong.
You were constantly jumping in there and starting shit. It's like, so as I was about to say, that's the great thing about the internet. When used properly, you can become you can make lifelong friends like this.
Yeah, it can be very, very volatile if you're getting into politics too much, especially with this election that we just had. Yeah, it's extremely volatile and people really get passionate about stuff. But yeah, I agree with what you just said, Mike. It is great to just find people who are really passionate about this stuff. And I know not everybody wants to take a deep dive into David Letterman or Johnny Carson or Dick Cavett or Tom Snyder. Not everybody does. But if you can find other people who really like that stuff and who do want to really be analytical about it and who are just really passionate about it, it's great. It's great to run across people like that. And you said, Mike, hey, we're like brothers from another mother. So I think that's very true.
Oh, very much so. And both of you guys, I think one of the commonalities that I appreciate about both of you guys is like Rob, with the sites that you manage, you make sure there's not a lot of negativity on there. Like you manage it that way. And for the most part, I believe that you don't, because you managed it so well at the beginning, you don't have to do that very much now, because the tone, the culture that is set in these groups that you have, again, thousands upon thousands of members, and pretty much everybody's nice to each other for the most part. And it's just a way of setting the standard to do that. And, you know, this show, again, I mean, we're a celebration, right? We don't talk about the dirt. We don't go into the seedy stuff because we want to just celebrate the good stuff. And I think that just makes life a lot better. So thank you both very, very, very much for being here. Obviously, if you want Letterman merchandise, go to the Worldwide Pants store. Go to the Worldwide Pants store or go to hello-deli.com. Rupert G still has stuff that the OG Rupert G still has stuff there as well. You know what? This is the last Letterman podcast of 2024, and I couldn't think of two better guys to celebrate it with. Thank you guys very much. This has been another episode of the Letterman Podcast with Mike Chisholm. Coincidentally, I am Mike Chisholm. Thank you, and good night. Night, boys. You guys can say good night. You can say good night.
Good night. Yeah.
Good night.
I thought you. Yeah. Good night. Bye.
Overcoat and underpants.